value chain in Africa. So once again, you're welcome, everyone. Hello, Miss Justina, how are you?
Fine, thank you. How are you?
Very well. You're looking so nice this afternoon.
As are you. Thank you.
Mr. Bruce, good afternoon. How are you today?
I'm fine, thank you. I'm sorry for my surroundings, but there's load shedding in South Africa. So I've had to come and sit in the garage to try and get a signal. Anyway.
Yes, allergies. Well, it's no longer a Nigerian thing, so we're brothers in the spirits.
Yes, unfortunately, we don't have all the generators you have yet. So if we have it off, it's off for hours.
Yeah.
Awesome. Once again, thank you so much for agreeing to be here. I know you both run busy schedules, so let's jump into it. So I'd like to give Ms. Justina the honors, ladies first, just to tell us in a nutshell what your experience has been in the hospitality industry and why do we love it so much?
Oh, okay. Thank you. Thanks for the honor. Hello, Bruce. It's nice to see you and you.
Hi, ma'am. Same for you.
Okay, thank you. Well, my experience, even though for only a little above 10 years, has been wonderful. And mine being majorly in hospitality and also majorly in training, manpower development, has been wonderful. And equally challenging, considering the fact that in Nigeria, for instance, we're still very much into cheap labor, unskilled workforce and all of that. So you bring them into the system and they are able to turn everything upside down, no matter how well you have designed the operations to be, But it's very interesting and has been very interesting to be able to move people from not knowing anything, to the point where they begin to offer quality service. So that for me has been one of the highlights of my experience in the industry. Looking back and seeing someone I met maybe a couple of years ago that did not know anything about the hotel industry, but now doing so well in the industry. So that's always would be a touch point, a major point for me and my experience in the industry. So yeah, it's been good and bad, but mostly good. So I'm happy about that. You're muted, so we can hear you.
Okay. So now, Mr. Bruce, over to you.
Wow. That's a big question you're asking me. Well, the first thing I'll tell you is that even though I started my career as a cleaner and worked my way up to MD in the hotel business, it is a glamorous career. It's one of the jobs, I'm always saying that, sitting in an office doing the same thing day by day doesn't appeal to me. But whether you're cleaning a room or you're serving a guest as a waiter or you're working in reception, there's always something new every day. There's some kind of drama or there's some kind of demand or, and then you have moments where you are so busy you can't even think straight. And then moments where you're just relaxing and waiting for the next customer. So I would say the thing in my experience about the hospitality business is because it's about people. A common misconception is that it's all about product, but, selling things. But, you're selling experiences. And if everything's in place to make that experience amazing, or what would I say, sufficient for the client, then that's what the hospitality business is about. I mean, hospitality means that in the first place anyway. So yes, that's it.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I think it rings so true, being in the hospitality industry, because there's a lot of opportunity for individuals to rise. If you're hardworking and you put your best foot forward every day, the sky is a stepping stone. So Mr. Bruce, I'd like to ask you, I mean, we're here to talk about hospitality and tourism, and then of course, Africa in the wider market. You know, in doing my research, I've seen that, you know, there's definitely a lot of influx of national brand hotels coming into Africa to set up, you know, hotels either through, you know, having their own hotels or leasing, you know, to local investors. So now I'm trying to ask, I see in 2022, there's a plan for 447 new hotels in Africa and 45,000 new rooms. And we've seen like there's some sort of spotlight going on in North Africa with Morocco, Cane Question. There's a plan for 7,000 rooms for this 2022 alone. And it seems like, although there are pockets of, you know, bright lights in the Gambia and Senegal and South Africa, what would you say that, you know, the tourism spotlight is moving up north when it comes to tourism in Africa, or is this just because of the now?
Well, look, it's just a phase. Let me use an example. Morocco already has a very strong hospitality market that has been established before. Same with Egypt. You know, they've got famous brands, international brands that are already there. I would say it's a phase in the sense that there is a lot of tourism, yes, because remember Morocco is very close to Europe, so it's a quicker trip. It's a more affordable trip than, you know, coming all the way. I mean, for Nigeria specifically, I mean, tourism is not really an attraction. It's more business, you know, business stays. But for South Africa, for instance, tourism, you know, has gone down because, you know, it's very far away. It costs a lot of money. And I mean, everyone around the world is feeling the impact of COVID. So I think it's a consequence of that more than anything. Than necessarily,
oh,
you know,
okay,
one thing about
that's
the
fine.
other.
As a Yeah, so as a well-experienced consultant as yourself, you know, it begs to ask the question in terms of African hotel brands. You know, I'm sure you've had experiences with the local governments and trying to set up like hospitality projects. Like, what has been your experience in that light?
With local hospitality brands.
With the government, no, in terms of like when you have new hospitality projects coming up and then interaction with the government in terms of, you know, policies, and how easy or how difficult is it dealing with the government, you know, vis-a-vis hospitality projects?
No, I believe it's simple, actually. You know, every country has its own challenges. I mean, if I may use, for instance, South Africa as example, you know, you can't just go build a hotel here. You'd have to have a license for the hotel. You'd have to have zoning rights for the hotel. You'd have to all those things, and they're very, very strict. You know, Lagos, for instance, in Nigeria, is a little bit more amenable. You with me? People will build a hotel. The challenge there, though, is that everyone wants a piece of the pie, no matter what you bring into the business. I mean, if you're going to build a new hotel, the people who owned the land before, their ancestors would want something. You know, the people who stayed, whose land it was originally. You know, there's the local government would want their fees or their PR or whatever for, you know, the fact that you're going to have permission to, for instance, trade in alcohol or trade in food or whatever. I mean, those are little things. But as far as preventing anyone from building a hotel, I actually think it's easier to build a hotel in Lagos than, for instance, Johannesburg.
Awesome. Okay. Yeah. So, Ms. Justina, let me move over to you. Wonderful profile, like I've said again. For the audience, Ms. Justina is a thoroughbred professional. She's a qualified service designer. She's a founder of the Calabar Hospitality House Limited, which is an indigenous firm that provides innovative and pragmatic human capital development. of course, she's the vice president of women in hospitality of Nigeria. Kudos to you on that. So, ma'am, I'd like to ask the service gap, the African service gap. Is that a real thing or a stereotype?
Okay, thank you very much again for having me. I think it's not, for me, it's not a stereotype, it's not a stereotype. And but I was mentioned again that we're actually making attempts at getting it right, and I said this because we have service gaps in Africa for a lot of reasons, but I'll just mention two very significant ones that everyone on this call can relate to. The first one being that we want to operate or we want to receive international guests, but the level of service and product and service we have falls below the normative expectations, quality expectations that all tourists will want. So there are minimum requirements for service, like bare minimum requirement for service. But most times we don't follow those requirements. And we have a lot of people cutting corners, to make money and not being interested in standards. So that's one of the reasons why the service gap we have is actually not a stereotype. It is it's actually, it's there, it's happening, So, and then secondly, we have policies and regulatory mechanisms that govern service, but are not applicable, or either not applicable, or in most cases, they apply them, but do not, or they have them, but do not enforce them, For instance, let me use Cross Calabar, for instance. I'm in Cross River State, and we have the Cross River State Tourism Bureau. We have our regulations, we have the minimum standards and everything. And I can't remember the last time that any of those were enforced, and even if they were to be enforced, not in the true sense of it, maybe because government wants to make money or something like that, but not in the real sense in which those policies and regulations were created for, So that's why I believe that most African countries are now working on getting it right. I know they have regulations that are working, but the rest of Africa has to catch up. So we do have service gaps, and we also do have a lot to do about covering those gaps. Maybe starting with the two that I've mentioned that are very, very much out there and familiar to everyone.
I mean, I kind of agree in some way, but also, when they say service gaps, that it just takes you back to, okay, what trainings are the hotels giving their staff in terms of, okay, this is how, to attend to a guest, these are the processes, these are the international best practices. But I'd also like to ask for bodies and establishments like yours, is there something extra that organizations like yours can do to further sensitize and enlighten career individuals like myself to say, okay, you know what, we need to push trainings. Of course, when you talk about hospitality schools, the first country you think of is the Swiss, or the hospitality schools in South Africa. But I've not, based on my research and based on my knowledge, I've not seen a bright light in terms of hospitality training in this part of like West Africa. So is there something that organizations that you're involved in can actually do to push this narrative?
Yeah, sure. Let me start with Women in Hospitality, of which I am president, of Women in Hospitality in Nigeria. We know also about the fact that we have more women working in the industry, but very few of them having management positions, right? So currently, for Women in Hospitality, we have introduced a program called the Female Managers Accelerator Program. This is a program that is going to help us, as it says, accelerate more women, to management positions. And then we also keep doing a lot of trainings for our members. But beyond that, let me also speak to the Federation of Tourism Associations of Nigeria. Recently or ongoing is a partnership that the EFTAN is getting into with the Standard Organization of Nigeria. And that partnership is towards ensuring that establishments in the hospitality industry operate to standard. And you know that you can't talk about standards in just furnishing, in the kind of things, operations, setup, and the rest of them, without talking about standards when it has to do with human capital. You know, so they go both hand in hand. Yes. How are the workforce going to be trained enough, you know, to be able to meet the required standards? Most times, you see pictures or photos of very beautiful hotels, and the next thing that will come to mind is that as beautiful as this place is, I hope they have people that will be able to give the service, you know, that is commensurate to or in line with the kind of facilities that they've been able to set up here at the moment. Yes. And then EFTAN, being the umbrella body of associations in Nigeria, also partners with member associations who are responsible for capacity development, you know, to ensure that trainings are current and the trainings are also impactful. We have associations like the Institute for Tourism Professionals, we have the Hartman, NSCI, you know, all of those associations where EFTAN ensures that they actually do give relevant and current trainings. Because no matter how you look at it, the people, the workforce being the second ROI is very important. We need to start looking at return on individuals, return on the employees, the people who are going to be giving this service, how well, how skilled they are. As a matter of fact, if you ask me why did I get into the hospitality industry, I always tell you one thing, is the fact that I started by seeing this dearth of having cheap labor, you know, unskilled workforce in the industry, and it's still very much there. There is a lot that has to be done. And women in hospitality, EFTAN, the association I belong to, are very much working hard to ensure that people understand that training, or owners, operators of businesses in the industry understand that having the skilled workforce is not even a matter of choice, it's a must. Like you have to have people who are qualified. Yeah. So that's how far we've gone.
Yeah. Can I add to that?
Sure.
Madame, you are correct, by the way, in a lot of things you're saying, but I just thought, you know, my own experience, because the reason I want to add into this is one of my qualifications is occupational directed education. And in South Africa, one of the things they did here, it started with the main hotel groups first in the 80s, where they set the standards down. They all agreed on the standards, and this is how they started training people. But setting the standards of how they should behave and conduct themselves and whatever is fine. But a problem became, which was a service gap, is it's fine to teach someone something, but you have to measure whether they are competent. So then they brought in assessments. Then when the government, you know, the modern government in 94 and after that, they formed the Skills Development Act, they made it legislation, they made each industry form their own standards authority, including the hospitality industry. They were the first one. And now you have what they call a qualifications authority, which manages how companies are, first of all, training their staff and then assessing them as competent, and they actually get a recognized qualification for it. So you can actually learn while you're at work. So you know, you don't need to go to a school, you'll actually learn there. So this is the approach South Africa did, and that's how they managed to bring up their service levels. However, on another point, in my experience in Nigeria, I have noticed that there seems to be a confusion between what the word service means, because services, as in you need to have a bed and you need to have this, you need to have this, you need to have that. That is services, but service is actually how are we treating the guest? In other words, how are we delivering the product? And one thing I've noticed, which is a cultural habit in Nigeria specifically, but I will admit it's everywhere in Africa, even in South Africa. You have this misconception, this misunderstanding between effort and competence. You will find someone doing a lot of work, but actually achieving nothing. So, and what they do, let's take a waiter, for instance. When you meet him, he's very friendly. He's very nice. He's very polite. Yes, ma'am. No, sir. Everything's fine. But you ask him for a club sandwich and he brings you a hamburger. Okay. And then you realize, okay, he's working. You can't say he's not working. He's doing his job. He's bringing you food. The problem is he's bringing you the wrong food. Okay. And then if you, and the problem is the managers don't understand the difference between effort and competence. So they now, they can't really fight because he's working. So all they say is, oh, we have a problem. This guy's stupid. He doesn't understand anything. But in actual fact, I blame the manager, because why has he not given him the tools to improve his competence, but actually measure him and discipline him if his competence is not there? Because, you know, you cannot make everybody do something. We all have certain skills and aptitudes. You know, you know, you get that person who can work in the back office, but you know that if you put him in the reception, he's going to irritate the guests, no matter what you teach him. So, you know, character is also important. So I'm sorry, I know I'm going on about the subject, but I'm just saying I agree with you. Standards is the first thing, but there has to be a unification between, okay, industry and the government and everybody saying this is the standards as far as the facility services are and as far as how we serve guests. Then we have to measure how are they actually doing the work and can they do the work? Because competence is three things. It's theory, meaning you understand what you're doing, you know why you're doing it. The second one is practicality, meaning you're able to do it. And the third thing is adaptability, meaning you know how to think if something goes wrong or if something is required that is beyond what you were trained. And only if you pass those three, you're competent. And that goes for any industry, actually, to be honest. So anyway, I just thought I'd add that because it's a serious thing and it's not going to be easily fixed. Not at all. It has to start somewhere. And I believe it starts with the leadership in a hotel. The leadership in a hotel must know, why are we here? And, you know, trying to make a quick buck out of a hotel will never work. A hotel is a life force. It's actually I wrote this in one book that I wrote. It's basically, it's a symbol. What's the word? You know, I can't even remember my own words. But basically, you know, a hotel becomes part of a place. If you think of New York, you think of the Waldorf. If you think of Paris, you think of the Ritz. Those hotels have been there for years, decades. If the guy was only there to make money in 5 years, that hotel would not be here today. So it's an organism that keeps on living. So people need to think long term. I mean, a lot of people in the hotel business stay for a very long time in the hotel business. The only reason they leave is because of the way they treat it or the fact that they are not actually educated. They're not actually made to improve themselves. Sorry, there's my soapbox for this afternoon.
So which means we should also be talking about the competency gap in line also
Yes.
with the
Yeah. But I also think that intrinsically there's a personality type that goes with the service industry as well.
Definitely.
Oh, yeah.
You know, because you have to be able to push the envelope, like you said, you know, your problem solving skills. How do you think about one issue 5 times in different ways? But yes.
Sorry to cut you. One other thing that will be very important, as you say, personality when recruiting. We should really, managers or people who recruit should really look very much into that because it's very important. I give you an instance. On a WhatsApp group, a manager needed to recruit a front office, you know, a receptionist. And here is what he said were the requirements. Please, if you know any young girl who is beautiful, tall, and smart looking, please recommend her because I need a receptionist. And I was in shock. I'm like, are you serious? So this is a criteria for you recruiting a receptionist. So we keep getting it wrong at every level. Yeah, just had to add that.
Oh, well, I
Well,
guess.
you know, wait, sorry, I must then add to what Madame said. Madame, you are so right, because you know in Lagos there's this little saying that receptionists are only there to get them a husband. Okay. So in other words, that manager, there is perpetuating that stereotype. Because if you keep on hiring someone just because they are pretty, which is not wrong. I mean, it's not their fault they're pretty. But if you keep on hiring someone because they're pretty, why would you be surprised 3 months later if they meet a rich customer and they end up marrying them? That makes no sense. Sorry. You get someone who's competent, not who's pretty. Yeah, anyway.
That's true.
Well, some people say it goes hand in hand.
Oh, well, can I tell you something? Sorry, you know what?
Yeah.
You know what? Someone who is friendly, amenable, smiling, and competent is very attractive.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Very
You're
much.
right.
Yes.
You're right.
So we need to get the combination right.
Correct. Okay, so I want to throw this question open. Someone asked one of the audience asked this question. It says, how do you position your startup brand in the hospitality and tourism industry in a market that's dominated by the big players? So like a RBSN and a Marriott, and then here comes Tunde and Sons.
Well, sorry, if I may, would you want to answer, madam, or should I?
Oh, please go ahead.
My experience, I think I can speak to this, because when I came to Nigeria 10 years ago, I was asked to manage 2 local branded budget hotels. And then a 3-star resort was added, and another 3-star resort after that, and whatever. All locally owned, locally branded. And I can tell you something. If you want to know the proof of what can work, first of all, when I took them, I said, I don't care about foreigners. My job is to make a hotel for Nigerians. Because South Africa, during the sanction period of all those decades, built their hospitality industry from the same with, the US many years ago. That's why you have very strong US brands against European brands, because the people started building their own brands. So I said, wait, we focus on the domestic market. So we make our hotels at a high standard, international standard, but our clients are Nigerian. That's all who I care about. If a foreigner comes in, hello, welcome, have a seat. We've got food for you. Don't worry. You don't have to eat jollof and moi moi for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. But at least, you can stay. But I'm not gonna go and want to put my website in Paris and only get foreigners with dollars. So anyway, that was the first thing. So if you want to say, can you compete? Yes, you can compete. But you mustn't try, you can emulate, but don't try and compete directly with a foreign company. I mean, if you have, for instance, the Marriott Group, the Marriott have their own website. They're all over the world. Why would I think my hotel in Lagos can compete with the Marriott? No, I go fetch my own clients. Thank you. That's simple. So I'm sorry, I might seem a bit, what's the word? Unempathetic about it, but it's just a fact. You need to say, what do we have that works? Does it work properly? Can we match an international standard in our service, our food, our cleanliness? Can we do that? Yes. Okay. Now let's get Nigerians to use us. And the proof in the pudding was in the COVID period when the lockdown finished. Do you know, while the lockdown was on, I was getting phone calls of people begging me to open my resort. And I said to them, I can't open my resort because the law says keep it closed. Eventually, I opened it. And we were full for like 6 months, where the other hotels, the big brands, international brands, were crying. Why? Because no foreigners were coming to Nigeria. And their prices were too high.
Well, I think, no, well, to jump in there, I think for a lot of the bigger brands, we had to change the strategy in terms of the rate and the marketing and what we were willing to do, because we said, okay, you know what, people are not coming in source, what do we do? So we had to now focus on the locals who couldn't travel. They would come to the hotel on the weekends, stay, to make sure that, our entertainment offerings were, a bit more pronounced, because we had to now deal with the local market. And I can speak for my own hotel. It wasn't such a bad time, even just coming out of the lockdown, and then, of course, until things sort of, normalized. But there actually is a market locally. But like you said, everybody wants to, look at, for the international market, when there is actually some sort of a gold mine here in Nigeria and, for citizens of Lagos. So thank you so much for that, Bruce. My next question goes to you. 30 years in the hospitality industry. Wow, fantastic. So when the concept of the African Continental Free Trade Area Agreement came up, what were your sentiments? I mean, this presents a single market for 1.2 billion people. Would that be an investor's dream? What can we do as Africans? How can we maximize this opportunity as well?
Well, I think the real benefit, specifically for Nigeria, is access to cheaper, more affordable supplies. Because, Nigeria doesn't produce much of what we use in a hotel, except the food, a lot of the food. But, the agriculture. But they don't produce, they don't produce taps or, or chairs specifically or anything. So when you now import them from South Africa or Europe or wherever, or other African countries, like Egyptian cotton from Egypt, you pay a fortune. So with the free trade agreement, I believe that the price of things are going to go down, definitely. That's my one belief. I would, however, I think the hospitality industry would really only benefit if you had, for instance, no visa restrictions in Africa, because that means that travelers will move around easier. You will get more business people moving around doing business because of visa, no visa restrictions. I think that would be really, I think that should be the aim, is really the visa thing. I mean, that's just my opinion. As far as the free trade, that's more to do with commodities and with supplies and large amounts of supplies, fuel and all those things. But again, you could buy probably products from South Africa much cheaper if there is no, taxes on imports and exports.
Okay. All right. Awesome. And also in that light, technology and hospitality. I mean, in recent times, we've seen how, trends are getting better for the check-in, check-out process, and basically the guest experience. How, in your own estimation, or we are to the international markets in terms of ease of experience for our guests?
Sorry, I lost a bit of your question because your signal went. Say again.
So I'm saying, in terms of our competitiveness, the tourism market and our competitiveness vis-a-vis the international markets, with the angle of technology and how technology is fast advancing, and how, so easing the experience of our guests. So for instance, check-in process, check-out process, when they come into simplifying the booking process, and all of that. If you want to put us on the map, like what's your estimation of where we are?
Yes. No, look, we're still far behind. There's some hotels that have already got, for instance, I remember this one software, it's amazing, where everything is done from your WhatsApp. You can order a meal from the kitchen. It's an app that works with your WhatsApp, and there's some amazing things out there. But again, the cost of things is a problem. And the other thing is resistance to change. And I'm not saying that the staff are the problem, because you could train them to use it. And in the end, the technology makes their job easier. But it's the resistance to change from the customers. Customers are used to the way of doing stuff. Now, it might work wonderfully in Europe, and there are clients that would adapt. Definitely, they are technologically inclined. But if your hotel population, meaning the people who use hotels in Nigeria, if they are over 30 or over 35, not youngsters, they are much more resistant to using your new technology. You remember in the beginning when I think it was 8 years ago, Jivago was battling to try and get people to book online and pay online.
Yeah.
I don't know if you know about that. They had such an endless thing because everyone said, no, you're stealing my money. No, it's not going to work. Now it's common. I mean, you know, when the hotel I was in right now, before I came back to South Africa, you know, it was daily. Nigerians booking and paying daily, no problem. So, you know, it can change. It's just taking a while. So it's not just about trying to match Europe. It's also about getting people, the population to adjust, to adapt, to go on.
Okay, thank you so much.
If I may add, I quite agree with everything he has said, you know, and also about the demography, you know, that would resist this kind of technology. You know, in Africa, it's only maybe the millennials, maybe Gen Zs or the rest of them that are very much in touch with technology, who may be willing to try new things. But the older generation, and in a continent like Africa, where we're very much, let's say, for instance, a check-in technology that now makes it possible for you to have contactless check-in. We are very contactful, let me put it that way. We like contact in Africa. I like to meet you. I want to meet you. I want to talk to people. We like to socialize. So if I walk into a hotel and I just pick up my key card and I'm not meeting anyone, I'm going straight to my room. I don't know if as woke as I am, let me put it that way, I still want that kind of technology. I don't want to go into a hotel and not meet anybody. I want to meet people, you know. So we may still have such resistance from the older generation because they're not very much in tune with technology. But above all, technology makes the job easier. So we should embrace it and get our customers to understand the reason why. We need to educate the guests as much as possible.
Correct. And just definitely make them see, you know, the pros, you know, to technology. Okay, so back to you, Mrs.Ovat. Hospitality and quality are two words that, you know, should be synonymous to one another because, you know, this is the industry whereby we're supposed to be the perfect hosts to our guests. And with the way the African economy is going, a lot of hotels are, you know, looking inwards to see how they can a lot of things are important, like Mr. Bruce rightly said, especially in Nigeria. We're not a producing nation, so to speak, but of course, we have a lot of small to medium-sized businesses that are actually making the efforts to have products that can stand toe-to-toe with those that are produced, you know, in the Americas and the Europe. But my question now is, do you think our entrepreneurs are ready and can they match up? Because inflation, foreign exchange, vis-a-vis is not helping us at all. So what's your take on that?
Okay, yeah, for me, I think whether it's a brand, it's a big hotel or a small hotel, everybody wants quality product. Basically, they want value for money, you know. So we should, our small businesses who are into the business of production, you know, producing amenities or whatever it is for hotels, should be able to match international quality, you know, because any hotel that wants to buy maybe toiletries, you know, soap, the shampoo, whatever it is, they will always want to buy a certain quality, you know, for their guests. So our producers should be able to match that quality. And then secondly, when they are able to match that quality, the big hotels or even hotels should now begin to support, or encourage or patronize these suppliers or producers, okay? And when they're able to support them, to buy from them, they can now scale, they can scale because you can produce. If nobody is buying from you, there's nothing you're going to do with your product, okay? So the first thing is that we should match the quality of product. If I want to be supplying to Marriott, for instance, I need to first of all go and stay have a night in the room, because one thing is that we who are salespeople, we don't want to invest. You need to spend money to make money. So spend the night in one of the hotels. Just take a room. Have a bath. How does that soap feel in your body? How does the shampoo feel in your hair? Have the feel of the product that these people are using, and then maybe go away. They always have a lot of those supplies. Go away with one, and then break down the composition, of what was made to used to manufacture this, and then look at what you are producing. So if you go back there with a pitch or a proposal or something, and you look at and show to them that you have to buy you can buy my product, test my product. It's the same, quality as this. And when they're able to get such market, you can now go to start getting things like bank loans, to produce in large quantity that you can export, or if you're going to be importing in large quantity, whatever the case, But at the end of the day, it has to be that process. There has to be a standard. It has to be standard products that you are selling or you're willing to give to these brands, because they will, I'm sure it can cut their price. If I'm going to bring a dozen of shampoos from the United States and XYZ is the amount of money that I'll pay for shipping, and there's someone in Nigeria who can give me same quality, I'm sure penny wise pound foolish. If you don't get from them, you're And then again, let's talk about inflation. People will always follow the ratio of inflation. I can only manufacture based on what is available, right? I manufacture at this price. You also have to sell at that price. The same way that these hotels.
Sorry, Madam.
Yes, sir.
Sorry, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I need to clarify something about international brands.
Okay.
First, because I worked for one of them for 15 years, and I know how they operate. International brands, you must remember, most of the international brands in, for instance, West Africa, are not owners of the hotels. They are managers. So they bring their brands and they manage. They make money on the stuff they bring in that is branded. And they use their own suppliers, whether in other countries that they've got. So a local person will find it nearly impossible to compete with it. That's the first thing I have to correct. So if you have an international brand that comes into Nigeria, running a hotel, they will say, we want this soap, this thing, this thing, this thing, this thing, this thing, this thing. But the supplies are coming from overseas, and it's part of the management agreement, the setup of the hotel. And that is, unfortunately, in my view, not fair, but it's what it is. So let's just say that. But I agree with you fully, ma'am. Quality is definitely a thing. However, I must say, if I may make a comment, since I was a foreigner in Nigeria for 10 years, the problem is Nigerians themselves sometimes, because they'll pay for a soap from England. They'll pay $10. But if I come now to the boss and say, of the hotel, he'll buy the soap for $10. Now I come to him, I'm a local guy, I got money, I'm making very good quality soap. The first thing he does is try and undercut my price to the point where I have to now start making shortcuts in my production to cover that I can at least make some profit. I hope I'm making myself clear. It's like if I get an Egyptian to come and do woodworking for me in my hotel, I'll pay him his salary and whatever he's charging me. But if I get a Nigerian to come and do it for me, I will argue him down. Now he needs the money, he needs business, but I'll argue him down to the point where he'll use substandard wood just to make some kind of profit. It's a very bad habit that I picked up from a lot of owners and senior managers in Nigeria when it comes to dealing with their own countrymen. I'm sorry I'm being very critical, but I think I need to say that. I think that if we want to compete and we want to build the quality and all that, we also need to support the local businesses as a unity, as a country, not just saying, well, the poor guy is going to, do his best. Sorry, ma'am, for interrupting.
No, it's okay. I can feel the passion. That's actually what we need in Nigeria, for our industry and supporting ourselves, and it actually goes back to what I was saying. And which means that if we have to get our brands into this international market or international hotels, who are the brands who are managing hotels in Nigeria, it has to start from the top. So government has to make, because I'm sure if any brand is in Nigeria, they have some kind of an agreement with government, some kind of arrangement with government. And if the government says that XYZ product must be gotten from suppliers in Nigeria, it will work. So we have to keep, that's one thing, that I've noted down. And it's one of the work that maybe the Federation, EFTAN, has to work on, to work with government to ensure that what is the quota of what our local suppliers are providing to international brands who operate in hotels in Nigeria. So thank you for that point.
Yes. Thanks, ma'am. You know that the South African government has done that, right? With the Black Economic Empowerment Act and the Employment Equity Act. Now, it doesn't just have to do with recruitment and jobs. With the Black Economic Empowerment Act, what they've done is they, for instance, say that 70% of your suppliers must be local Black business, for example. And the international companies who wish to operate in South Africa have to abide by it. Otherwise, they will not get contracts, because what they do is, for instance, my business, for me to have a business with your business, I must prove to you that I am Black Economically Empowered certified. If you now have that, when you want to do business with the next person or the government, they're going to ask you for your certificate, and you have to show proof that the people you do business with are doing the same thing.
The funny thing is that
it's driven by government.
In Nigeria, we have that thing where if you're going to set up in a particular community, you need to employ a certain number of people from that place. But it really doesn't work. They don't even follow it. Those things get politicized, and people just come bring everybody from where they are, and that's the end of it. Yeah. So a lot of things we still need to do in Nigeria, quite a lot, and it's frightening. It's frightening, the kind of work that we have to do.
Very. I think you and I took over as the host left. Sorry.
Yeah, you're muted, because if you have to check that. Your microphone is still muted.
We'll just stare at each other.
Yeah, it's nice to see you, so not a problem. Maybe you can tell us about something you're doing right now that is interesting.
Sorry, something?
Yeah, maybe you can tell us about something you're doing right now that is interesting. What's happening? Are you in South Africa at the moment?
Yes, I'm here at the moment between all this load shedding. But you notice the power came on, but I decided to just stay where I am instead of moving.
Yeah, it's better. It's better. In case it goes back.
Yeah. Oh, you're back. Sorry, we took over.
It's fine. Okay, so I want to piggyback off of this conversation to say the international brands, and part of the contract, stipulate, what they have to bring in their own, branded amenities, so to speak. So now we have an ongoing conversation to say, outside of that, the management that run a lot of these hotel chains and brands, yeah, especially in the executive part of, executive personnel, usually are sourced from other countries, right?
Yes.
Some organizations or some, properties will say, okay, they come, they do either a task force or they're here for like a period of 2 years. And then, they move around. We move around a lot in the hospitality industry. But at some point, you see that the nationals don't get to move up as quickly.
Yeah.
And I'm not trying to be, to politicize or to be, emotional about it, but to say, okay, the locals, some of them are actually good at what they do. But because the expats don't move around as quickly, some of the workforce might feel, discontent. And then the Nigerians now begin to hop around. So, I mean, in my previous employment, some person had actually raised to say, you know what, that the local law, the labor law doesn't really back the Nigerian employee as much as it should. So please, Justina, Mr. Bruce, what's your take on that?
Look, as a foreigner for Nigeria, I can speak about this because you'll notice that I would work for an African country, an African company, not a foreign company. Yeah. It's because when I did work for a foreign company, I learned very quickly that there was a glass ceiling. Because even in the company I was in South Africa, we were a lot of local, what I call indigenous white people. We were a lot of African white people, but we also didn't go anywhere. We couldn't go above a certain level. Never mind our colleagues that were not white, okay? So now I come to Nigeria, and of course I see it everywhere. Like you say now, I'll go to a hotel and there's a German GM or there's a French or a Chinese, you know what I mean, okay? It is a reality. I think it's part of the business, the management model of using a foreign company to come and manage a business, that they bring their own manager in, which is justifiable because remember, they bring their expertise. Sure. But I do agree that it's not an ideal model. So I think I would be probably too biased to give really an objective view here, because personally, I don't like that model. I believe a company should invest in Africa or co-invest, and it should work, which was the case before here in the company I used to work for, because they were co-investors and then they pulled out and they only wanted to manage. Because when you have co-investment, that's when you do get some development, where they are part of the team, part of the world. But, and I mean, whether it's racially motivated or regionally motivated or protectionism or exploitation, I don't know. I mean, like I say, I'll get very passionate about this. So I think I should shut up, okay, because it's on a public platform. But I'm just saying, I agree fully with you. I think it's a very bad sign that you have a company running a hotel for 20 years or 30 years. And when they leave, the people who work there learned nothing, or they didn't really move anywhere. Or if they did, all they could do was hop around from one place to another and stay in the same job for the rest of their life, even if they had the potential to actually be much more.
Much more.
So, yes, and like I say, I'm a little bit passionate about that specific thing. So maybe Madame will give a much more academic reply than I did.
I really don't think there's any academic reply to that situation. You know, it's more experiential, like the things that happen. There are things that are happening. And in Nigeria, mostly the people who have money to build this kind of hotels and get these brands in, that believe more that the foreigners will do a better job. Even when in recent times, we have Nigerians who can actually do those jobs. Like, we know that, we see them. Nigerians, people in the industry are becoming nobody is joking with competency anymore. They say competencies are currencies. So people are beginning to ensure that they are equipping, empowering themselves to have such positions. But if you have a hotel owner who still prefers to bring a foreigner, to Nigeria to manage your property, it remains a problem. So the question now is that, how do we also tackle that? and that's one of the problems I've written down. It's like this conversation is just exposing me to so many issues that we have and we're not talking about. So we have all these people who are doing their best to become professionals enough to handle those situations. Okay, let's say you really want a foreigner to manage your company, but I don't know, how long would they manage it for? Is it not possible that at some point, the question is, what's your succession planning? At the event in which they leave, because most times they just leave, and those hotels, if you're not careful, they crash. They're not left to the hands of these people who you haven't prepared to take over these situations, and it becomes a problem. At the end of the day, you either get bad or they close up, and
yes,
that's
you have a point. Sorry, you have a point there. If I think, if I may use myself as example, I was GM and then MD of a hotel group in Nigeria. I personally developed 8 managers, of which one is now in Calabar running the Transcorp. He was one of my junior managers. He's the general manager of the Transcorp Calabar. Now,
great. I met you.
Sorry? What?
I will tell him I met you today. I'm in Calabar right now, actually.
Yeah. And yeah, Mr. Odor. Okay. Anyway, so the thing is that I did that because I believe my legacy is the impact I have on people and bringing them up. Okay. It's a personal choice. So I didn't need to leave my job. I stayed in executive. I stayed in a role, but I created managers, to the point where I didn't have to do anything. So I was still in my role, but these people were doing well. And then if they got bored, they got other opportunities, but at least they became managers of those hotels, or they moved, they became managers. Now, the thing is, I say, okay, fine. You have a foreign GM running a foreign hotel, managed hotel, fine. But this is where it comes with that skills development, the government, where they're saying, fine, but you have to fill in a work skills plan, or, something. You have to meet a quota of how many people you have trained this year in kitchen, in this, in that. In other words, they must become like, because, for instance, the problem in Nigeria, is that there's a lot of laws, but they don't get enforced. If you don't know this, for me to work as an expat in your country, there is a quota position. For that quota position, there is certain documentation that has to be submitted every few months or every year, showing what training I've done, how I've done this, what I've done, to justify why I'm an expat working in Nigeria. I can tell you now that I'm sure that between the lawyers and the immigration, they just fill in the form, send it the immigration stamps, everything's happy. I think that is the problem, because surely if the expat quota applies to me like that, it applies to all expats. Okay, so who is checking what those expats are actually training? Who is verifying that so many people were developed, so many people were promoted, so many people were educated? Because a lot of these international groups have their own academies. Why are the Nigerians not going to those academies to learn? To learn and become, or the academy comes here to teach. But I can assure you, if it was their own asset, if they were an investor, half an investor, those academies would be every year at the hotel, busy teaching people. Ooh,
well,
okay.
not to shout out to RHG, but hey, we have all that. Thank you, Mr. Bruce. No, I think RHG, yes, RHG is the hotel chain to be at. So anybody in the comment section, if you're looking for a job. Okay, so Mr. Bruce.
Yay.
Okay, so acceleration of tourism. I like, how you had highlighted that, Nigeria is pretty much a business destination, and not so much of a tourist destination. But yes, we have a strong nightlife, and then we can see that.
Yeah, but sorry, if I can correct you, it's a business destination for foreigners, not
for foreigners. Yes. Okay.
Tourist destination for domestic market.
Yes. Okay, thank you so much. I stand corrected. Okay, so what are your recommendations for us to be able to accelerate our tourism growth, pretty much? Or do you think we need to form, partnerships with, other locations along the West African coast as well? Just What are your thoughts?
Well, I would, you know, if I was in a position, let's say I was Minister of Tourism, okay, what I would say is the first thing we need to do is focus on domestic tourism.
Yeah.
We have to fix the domestic tourism. It's already growing. It's already doing well. And you must, I mean, I just saw it recently with a certain hotel that opened, which is beautiful, small place on on an island. It was now taken over by a foreign company. You know, as soon as something is really doing well, okay, let's buy it. We'll do it. Okay. Yeah, but we need to develop domestic tourism, safety and security, putting stuff in place, start supporting all the other people in the supply chain, from, you know, taxi drivers to, you know, your tourist guides to your whatever. I remember in my one resort, we actually made a point of educating our guests about all the scenery that was around the resort, like those ancient ruins in Epe and stuff like that, you know, in our Wolawa Museum and all those things. But it takes effort. So you need to focus on domestic tourism, because the more you fix the domestic tourism, the more you start attracting foreigners. I'll use, for instance, Calabar as an example. You know, the ranch. When the cattle ranch was doing well, remember when it was running world class, it attracted a lot of foreigners. But then the governor changed, and there was suddenly, oh, we don't care about that place anymore. And it ran down into the ground. And now no one goes there.
Yeah.
You know, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, because just to piggyback off of that, because I know there was a time when you had, you know, the Calabar end of year festival, our Argungu festivals, the Ayo festivals. It was a thing, let's just say, you know, 5 to 7 years ago. But in recent times, there is no real conversation about that. So I think definitely, we definitely do need to improve the narrative and tell our own stories. But I've also seen, you know, that there is some growth in terms of beach resorts that could be, you know, form a tourist location, you know, for people who are coming in into Nigeria. Do you think there's an opportunity there to actually, you know, grow that sector, beach tourism?
Yes, I do. No, I do. And I think it is growing actually, but it's a lot of individuals trying their best. I don't think it's you see it mainstream, but I can tell you now, in my 10 years, I suppose I still have an element of objectivity. That's probably why I can see it. You know, 10 years ago, there was nowhere in Lekki where I could go to a beach resort in, you know, down Lekki. I mean, there were some kind of places, but not really good quality beach resorts, where now there's a few. I can climb on a boat with the Kuwait Club, and I can go to Snake Island, or I can go to the islands and I can go and stay at a resort there. You know, I can actually now get more information about places to see than I was able to do 10 years ago.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Unless you were local, you didn't, if you lived in that area of the city, you didn't know anything. I mean, now I've now, you know, now I can get more. I think there are a lot of little people meaning individual people, doing a lot, but it's not a concerted effort, not a group effort. So I would say, yes, it is improving. It is improving.
Oh, thank you so much. So, Ms. Justine, I think we need to form a bandwagon to the federal government of Nigeria.
Seriously, we really need to, because if you're talking about the tourism value chain, we always talk about it more as a private sector. You know, the government seems to forget that they have a role to play when it has to do with the value chain of tourism. They always have to enable a lot of processes. They always have to set the tone, you know, for the private sector to take it from there. You mentioned the festivals, and Bruce mentioned the Obulu Mountain Resort. Of course, one of the things affecting tourism a lot is the lack of continuity in government when it has to do with in Nigeria. You know, so someone becomes a governor and has all of these ideas, you know, and starts up something very wonderful, as fantastic as the Obulu Mountain Resort. as fantastic as Tinapa, you know, and then another governor is not interested and he dies. And then other policies of government that makes the people angry destroys an entire facility like the Tinapa resort. During the NSAS protest, they raised down the entire place, like everything all gone because of policies or the lack of policies of government. So those are all very serious issues that are affecting us. We need to really do that protest to government. You lead the protest, I'll be right behind you. I'll be right there behind you.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I mean, this is so good. I just feel like we could be here for hours. But as we wind down, I'd like to address this question to both of you. Can we now categorically say that the pandemic is over? Has the hospitality segment bounced back 100%? I know that the one thing that it indeed has taught us is resilience. Every hotel had to come up with some, business contingency plan, basically just to stay afloat throughout the period. Do you say that we're a bit better prepared going into the future?
Okay, I think I'll answer because my mother always told me that a woman has to have the last word. So I think I'll answer for you. Okay.
Your mother was
So I would just say, no, we have not finished with COVID's effects. Yes, the market's resilience, but there's a lot of companies going under. There's a lot of job losses. The market is shrunk. There's less foreign business coming into Nigeria at the moment. The fact that you cannot take dollars out of the country and pay for things is starting to cause problems with airlines and even hotels and stuff like that. So, it's not over yet. I think all this economic effect is still impacting the hospitality industry, actually all of them. But at the same time, one thing I will say in my experience in Nigeria, when the Ebola crisis happened, when this happened, when that happened, the first thing I always, even when COVID started, one owner said to me, "Oh, what are we going to do?" I said to him, "Do you know what? Nigeria is probably one of the most resilient countries I've ever come across in my life. Because Nigeria is like, oh, well, same shit, different day. I'm just going to hustle and hustle and hustle and make it." And I'm sorry to make it so simple, but it's a very nice mentality, meaning, yes, things are not perfect, but we will carry on. We will move on. We have no choice. And I think the spirit of Nigerians in that way, their entrepreneurial nature, their opportunistic nature, whether it can have negative or positive impact, is something that is very unique Nigerian. I will say that to you. And I think that's something that will really drive the way things move forward. Because at the end of the day, the Nigerians are the one who put one foot in front of the other and say, let's go on. They don't fall back and go, oh, woe is me. And I'm talking generally now, but that has been my observation. Whether it's a cleaner or whether it's an MD of a company, it's the same thing. So I just thought I'd say that. Madame, you have the last word.
Oh, yes. Thank you so much. As I said earlier, your mother, a very wise woman. She taught you well. Thank you for that. Okay. So I'm going to agree with everything you say, whether it's the pandemic of the health or the pandemic of the economy. We're still not out of any one at all because it affected us in different ways. And particularly in Nigeria, because other countries can maybe boast of the government aiding them out of the pandemic. But we didn't really see a lot of that, especially in the hospitality industry, which you could say was one of the most hit. We had no kind of support at all from government. So we're still much, in the pandemic. We're not getting sick and getting to the hospital anymore. We're not contracting the virus, but we still have the economic effect of what the pandemic brought to Nigeria. So in that regard, I would say that to some extent, we're still in the pandemic. And we need to add that to the list of the things we're marching to the government with, to ask for our palliatives for the tourism and hospitality industry. Our list is now a bucket full. I don't know how we're going to start.
I don't want to know me if that's the palliative that you're going to give. Okay, awesome. Okay, so I think we have just like 5 minutes. If anybody wants to drop in some questions into the chat box, I can take 2 questions or 3. If anyone has questions, please just quickly type them in the chat box so we can allow these 2 hospitality mavericks give you an answer. Okay, so Adediro says he is a well, it's not so much of a question, but a request. I'm a principal catering officer in a government hospital, and I want to major in health tourism. What advice do you have for me? I really also need a mentor. So maybe you can, yeah.
I think catering, catering is basically probably is the same thing, whether it's in a hospital or it's just for him to understand how the food sector works, or maybe get some more, if he wants to do it, put the hospitality touch into what he does in the hospital. He can get in touch with people who are doing that same thing in the hotel industry, and maybe get mentored, probably get mentored by someone. Since he's looking for a mentor, get mentored by someone who has been doing these things a lot in the past, and particularly in the hospitality industry. So you get 2-for-1 kind of thing. A 2-for-1 kind of thing. That would be my contribution to him.
My response would be, since my career, I started as a cleaner and worked up to where I was. Though I was blessed with 1 or 2 mentors in my career, I will tell you that mentorship or mentors aren't the fixer-upper of everything. You have to educate yourself. You have to see what others are doing. You have to learn, and you have to educate. You have to read. Like Madame, you just said now, if I'm looking at a hospital in England that's doing a wonderful job catering, or one even in Nigeria maybe, I would say observe what they are doing and read and learn more about it, because you won't necessarily find a person who would be the mentor or could be a mentor. It's very scarce to find an actual mentor who can give you time. That's why it's a blessing when you have a mentor. But a mentor is not the answer to everything, because a mentor cannot solve your problems if you're not disciplined, if you're not someone who wants to learn and improve yourself and be self-aware. No mentor is going to help you, because you see, I think people must not confuse mentor with hero, and hero is a very, very bad mistake. Sorry if I may bring some psychology into this. We have a tendency to either look for the bad guy, the hero, or the victim. Or we play the victim, so someone is my hero, but someone else is a victim and I'm the hero. And then, of course, the other person making them a victim is the bad guy. It's a game that we humans play the whole time, and it's just a waste of time. We have to take responsibility for our own actions and our own education. Every single individual student, even myself, even Madame, even you, we all take responsibility for the actions and the education we have. We will not learn anything unless we decide to learn something and to better ourselves. But if we want a quick fix and we think we're going to get a good salary quickly, or we're going to get that nice job title or job, no, it's a fool. If we add value to what we are doing, things come to us naturally.
Okay, I think she's out of call again. But
maybe I was a bit forceful there. Sorry.
Personally,
you can see I was a teacher.
Yes, I've learned a lot from what you just said now. And for someone who is fairly not really there in her career yet, I still I'm sure to make do with a few mentors along the way would be a good thing. But again, before I even get to the level of mentorship, because if I should come to you, for instance, Bruce, to be my mentor, you will want to know how far I've gone, because you don't want to be throwing into any empty container. There has to be somewhere. I need to be able to. You need to be able to meet me halfway. You know, there has to be a point of reference for our conversation. So that's what I take out of
Yes, I think there was a saying somewhere I read that said, "I will only teach you when you are ready to learn." Something like that. You know,
exactly.
Yes, because I'm not going to make your problems go away. You are going to ask me how to do it. Something like that.
Exactly. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So if I'm going, you're going for mentorship with half of the solution to your problems, and then the mentor can now show you how to get out of the rest of the problem. Okay. All right. I don't know. That's me trying to be the moderator that I love to be. And she's out at this point. I don't know what we should do. Maybe we wait for her, and then I'm looking at the comment box to see if there's any other question that you can take, and then I can support.
Yes, so thank you so much. I'll just jump in. I think she has issue with our network. So we'll take just one more question, and then we can also then begin to wrap up. Thank you for this wonderful session. My name is Sam. I'll be standing in for Margaret while she.
Hello, Sam.
Hello, good to meet you. And it's been an interesting conversation. I'm not in the hospitality industry, but I have learned quite a lot joining this call. And I must appreciate the both of you for the rich conversation and the interesting session. Someone said the Female Managers Accelerator Program talked about this. Can you give someone get more information about it? So I believe it's direct you.
Okay, so please, the person should please go to the Women in Hospitality Nigeria website. You will see all our programs there. The Female Managers Accelerator Program and also the Grow Her Mentorship Program is also up there. And then contact us using the contact information we have on our website, and we'll give you all of the information that you need.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, sir. I'll be bringing my colleague, Chris, to just speak about the program Good 18. We are starting our Master in Hospitality, Tourism and Hospitality Management in Rome Business School here in Nigeria. We want to contribute our own quota to the industry growth. And Good 18, and interesting enough is the fact that our panelists today will also be you also be meeting them in class. If you're joining those programs, hopefully you will meet them in class and you have a more robust time, much more time to have great conversations as relates to your growth in the industry, and to learn more from these experts who will be sharing from their wealth of experience, you know, over the years. I know that it's going to be an interesting program and interesting journey if you choose to join the Master in Hospitality and Tourism Management, which is starting this October. So, Chris, I don't know if you're on the call, but I think I've done basically much of that. So if you really want to get on the program, you can reach my colleague. The enrollment process is ongoing now. You can get to the website, the Rome Business School Nigeria website, www.romebusinesschoolnigeria.ng, and then you can register to join the Master in Tourism and Hospitality Management. And it's going to be an interesting program, and you have quality faculties as well who will be facilitating this session. And I believe that this has been an impactful session for every one of us. I know that we can't exhaust all our questions, we can't respond to all the questions within this time frame, because this session is meant to last for just maximum 90 minutes. So thank you so much for your time. And on behalf of Margaret, I still can't find Margaret. Maybe our network. So, and on behalf, on behalf of the country director of Rome Business School Nigeria, I want to appreciate our panelists for this session, for your time, for your heartfelt, for pouring out your heart and your knowledge and sharing from your wealth of experience. And also, we hope that this conversation will be taken further in terms of engaging the other stakeholders. I know Mrs. Justina can also take on the protest while we will be behind you, ma. We will be in front of you. And then as well, we'll also work further together to also get most of our students, especially female, to join the professional bodies. Some of them asked about the professional bodies, the international professional bodies, and both the international and the local professional bodies, so that you have a seamless and an accelerated pathway into professional membership to these organizations and institutions, in addition to your master's program. Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone. So on this chat, we can give a shout out to our speakers for today. And also at this point, you have the opportunity, the mic is unmuted. You can also just say thank you to them. And then if you don't mind, it won't just be my video alone and the panelists. We can just take kind of a group virtual photograph, since we cannot do that.
Thank you, everyone. It's been a pleasure.
So you can on your video and we can take a group photograph if it's convenient for you. You can on your video. Let's see, everyone.
Thank you. We appreciate you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That was impressive.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
God bless you.
Enjoy the
And,
rest of your evening.
Exciting workshop. Thank you very much for the wonderful experience.
Thank you all. Thank you. All right, bye.
Thank you. See you.